What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome, welcome, welcome. You already know what time it is. This is the greatest podcast on your social media page. Listen, tonight's going to be another amazing show. I look good, I'm smelling good. I feel like, everything is going to be well tonight. Just kidding with y'all. But this is the Black and the Bold podcast. You're going to hear some thought provoking, gut wrenching, and even sometimes some tear jerking content that you just can't get enough. That's why every Tuesday night you tune in right here. But listen, I'm the Bold. But we're gonna get this thing started off right. Brother Black, how you doing this evening?
Hey, doing wonderful, brother. Doing wonderful. This is Dwayne Johnson, otherwise known as the Black, on this combination of the Black and the Bold, and especially the beautiful joining us tonight as well. History-wise, this is Dwayne Johnson out of Valdosta, Georgia, graduate from Lowndes High School. For those that are in the Wintersville area, on to Georgia Tech in Atlanta, graduated with a bachelor's degree of engineering there, electrical engineering to be specific. Went on by way of Dallas, Texas, Tallahassee, Florida, and finally landed in Washington, D.C. metro area, and started pretty much a long career there in management with engineers in the defense contracting area. Outside of that, met my wife, and we had our first start of two beautiful kids, and started investing from there. Really put ourselves in a position through stocks and real estate investing to be able to come back home to our hometown in Valdosta and basically live off of the residual income of that. And it gave us an opportunity, or it gives us an opportunity to impact the community as we so please at this point. One of my main pushes is being an advocate for local small Black businesses in our community. So that's pretty much where we sit. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our third child at this point. He's a Georgia-born child, so our 6-year-old. He's the King Kari of the house, so as we call him. But nonetheless, we've had 3 beautiful kids. All of them are excelling in the curriculum at school, and also our 2 oldest are doing very well in track year-round. So that's pretty much it, bro, as far as the background. But as far as the latest going on, on our end, is just really rounding out the track season, the official high school track season. This week we'll be traveling to the state competition, and then we'll roll out of that. And I'm already looking at summer league AAU track for our 2 kids that are running 800 meters and the mile. So it's just nonstop for the summer as well, but it's a good thing to be involved with the kids, and our family loves it. How about you, Bo? What's going on?
Hey man, I'm doing great, man. I'm absolutely doing wonderful. I'm glad to be with y'all this evening. Good evening to my beautiful sister. I'm not gonna rag it tonight. I'm gonna be a good guy on my best behavior. But listen, Eddie Mack from Valdosta, Georgia, Lowndes High grad. As you can tell, UCF grad, proud night, once a night, always a night. I had a chance to get out into the world a little bit. Graduated with a healthcare administration undergrad, public administration grad. Got a chance to go from to the power industry. Got a chance to go into the health industry, and now I'm in talent acquisition and absolutely loving it. But also, we are still launching the legacy investments in education. We actually are embarking upon our first property as an LLC. So I'm actually really, really excited about that. Getting ready to do some great things. Actually teaching my children along the way. Last night we had a conversation about assets and liabilities, and so we're really, really getting ready to, equip them for what's needed for the next generation. So I'm excited, man. I'm definitely excited. Another great week, and I know it's going to be another great show. We're going to talk about some good things, and we're going to bring up some information that I think is really going to push our community forward. So I'm ready for a great show. Beautiful. How you doing, sis?
I am doing well, doing pretty good. Kind of lost my voice. I don't know if that's kind of left over from the uh, Valdosta, Florida weekend, but yeah, I'm doing great. Enjoying this beautiful weather that we're having. Some days was hot, but the last couple of days has been very good, very nice. Spring. Been able to get out in my yard and really take advantage of some things out there, planting some stuff, flowers and cutting grass and stuff, and getting my flower beds together. But yeah, I've really been enjoying myself these past couple of days. I am Suzette Michelle, known as the third counterpart of this trio here. Beautiful. I am native of Valdosta, Georgia, graduate of Valdosta. Oh, not Valdosta. I'm thinking about Valdosta, Florida, but graduate of Lowndes High School, graduate of Valdosta Technical College, where I received my radiologic technology degree. Serving the community in healthcare, had an opportunity to dip down into Tallahassee, Florida as well, where I was recruited for the hospital there, Tallahassee Memorial. But now I had an opportunity to do some travel work around the states of Georgia and Florida, just enjoying my time in healthcare and just growing with the field. I also have three kids, three children, graduates of Lowndes High School as well. So I'm very fortunate to have them to graduate from my alma mater and just enjoying life at this moment, enjoying this segment, a part of the Black and the Bold, and really just trying to be a part of the conversation as we're propelling our people to great new heights and raising the bar, raising the standards. So I'm excited to hear about the information, the importance of Black men in our society, because that is the real thing that we need to talk about and a subject that we definitely need to bring to the table. So I'm just excited to learn tonight. I'm going to try to be as a quiet participant tonight as I can as I watch and learn. Thanks guys for having me.
Well, we definitely are going to solicit your participation because tonight we want to try to see if we can steer this conversation in a positive direction. Given all of the information and all the issues and happenings in the last 48 to 72 hours. So we're definitely going to do our best to be adults about the situation, and so we can definitely have something to build upon for tomorrow and for the days, weeks, months, years to come. Before we get started, we want to send a shout out to everybody that's out there that's watching YouTube, Facebook. We want to make sure that if you're on watching us, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and before you log out tonight, you got to give your brother, the Help a Brother Out special, the HBO special, which is definitely hit that subscribe button. So every time we get ready to log on and give you some more inspired content, you'll get a notification. So definitely make sure you do that, whether on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you are someone who likes Instagram, we are also on Instagram as well. So make sure you hit us up at the Black and the Bold. Make sure you do that because we're going to make sure we continue to engage you on that platform as well. So yeah, man. Before we get started, man, we again sending that shout out. We love y'all. We thank y'all. We want to give y'all another great shout out for last week's show. If you didn't get an opportunity to catch last week's show, you missed a great show. Great interaction, great recap of what happened to the Wintersville weekend down in Valdosta, Florida. And man, they are still talking about
Valdosta. Say that same thing.
They are still talking about it. And I don't know if you're a part of the group. Rather on I think all of us are. But if you're watching us, if you aren't a part of that group, you're missing out. They are loading that page with all types of stuff. I think I saw today or yesterday they were shouting out small businesses. It might have been early today. And so that page is actually it's starting to morph into a whole different situation, which is a very positive thing. That we got to send a shout out to the mayor of Valdosta, Florida, Mr. Tricky, Ivy Tricky. So we want to make sure you all go out and give him a shout out. Go to the page, like it, subscribe. If you are an alumni of Valdosta or Lowndes High School. So again, we're looking at preparing for next year. Already, the quotes are already out there. People are already sending their money in. They're fighting over houses. So it's getting crazy. So you don't want to miss next year. So make sure you get yourself prepared and involved for that. But yeah, man.
Couple things. Hello to Janae. All right. Definitely appreciate you joining. Then also, I don't know if there's really an age limit. Obviously, there's an age constraint below 18 and 21. Right. But Jarkay, I think you can jump right on in. Greetings to you as well. And then finally, of course, we can make this transition as well, brother, because you're already giving off the right vibes. Tan is already jumping in.
What up?
asking
What up?
why are we doing the Kevin Samuels vibe right
Mm.
now?
Well, might as well go ahead and give a tribute to my big dog.
Yeah.
Candle for the evening is vanilla cream fat paste. So let me go ahead and light my candle and get my ambiance ready for this evening. And I got to make sure that once I light my candle, I got to let you know the fragrance for the evening is none other than Yves Saint Laurent. This is intense. If you're really trying to get out there, I'm telling you, it turns heads every time. So shout out to the Godfather, Kevin Samuels. I know a lot of people, had their thoughts about him. A lot of people hated him. A lot of people loved him. But I come to tell you, man, the guy made an impact that cannot be erased. So I went and got my suit, my gray suit, and my solid tie. You know what I'm saying, and my crisp white shirt. Like he told us, we always need to make sure we got the basics because you never know who you're gonna see and who you're gonna meet. You know what I'm saying? So it's all good. Shout out to the Godfather. We're gonna miss you, brother. Gone but not forgotten, for sure. For sure. Yeah. But yeah, man.
I'm lighting my candle too. And this is actually a candle by Southern Scents. Shout out to Southern Scents. These are all natural soy candles. So I'm going to use my very special candle for Kevin tonight. Go ahead and light a little something for him.
Appreciate you. See, that's what I'm talking about. We're gonna be adults about this situation. You know what I'm saying? Jarkay said the Godfather. You already know. You know what I'm saying? Godfather. You got to get. The Godfather. The only Godfather isn't the guy on. What's the name of that show? The Godfather.
Scarface.
He wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one. I mean, there's a Godfather Harlem. If you watch Netflix, you figure it out. But yeah, he was the Godfather. Tennille McClary said that I didn't agree with some of his views, but rest in peace. Hey, I didn't agree with everything he said. I think you're crazy if you just agree with everything everybody said. I didn't agree with everything he said either. But I did like to keep the main thing. And if he didn't do nothing else, he empowered brothers. So we're gonna talk about that though.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be all right tonight, Tan. Thank you for checking in on me, Queen. I appreciate it. Thank you.
But listen. Before we jump into this conversation, you all please make sure you share this conversation. Start a watch party. Send the notes out. Send your text messages out. Let your family and friends know we're on because we got a lot to share tonight. And we promise you, it's not all about Kevin Samuels. I promise you, it's not. But I think Brother Kevin Samuels allowed us to highlight some things in our community that I think is going to be important for us to talk about. If you got a chance to see the moniker, to see the thumbnail, it really speaks for itself. We're going to be talking about the importance of black men in society, the importance of black men in our society today. There's a lot that's been happening, a lot that's been going on, a lot that has been talked about, probably over the last 2 years, probably since the end of 2019, early 2020. When cabin fever started to really become a reality for us, and the pandemic hit us, and we kind of had to readjust our life, and it was an abrupt adjustment too. And I think at that particular point, by us being in isolation and being, kind of cooped up in our homes, it allowed us to really focus on matters of the home and matters of what was close to us and what was near and dear to us. Which was really, the importance of the people that were closest to you, because of all the problems that people were experiencing. There were a lot of the divorces were filed for the summer of 2020 and the fall of 2020 because many people were married to people who they really didn't like, or they had kind of adjusted. They had kind of adjusted to their lifestyle because they had 8 to 10 to 12 hours away from their spouse. And now they were cooped up in the home all day with someone who they really didn't like. And I think at that particular point, it forced them to really, really pay attention, to who was close to them. And when it came to children, when it came to jobs, we saw a huge shift in the marketplace when it came to employment. 2021 was the beginning of the great, what do they call it? The great
recession.
was it the recession when they
I'm
walked?
sorry, Great Resignation.
The
Sorry.
resignation. There we go. The Great Resignation, when people were leaving their jobs, and you saw a lot of employers started scrambling around, trying to figure out what we're going to do, because now these people are leaving the workplace, and now we've got to usher in this new workplace experience. So here we are. The spring of 2022, and we're still discussing what's near and dear to us, which is the importance of it. We just celebrated Mother's Day. Shout out to all the mothers out there. We really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Listen, I sent my mom a text. I sent her a Facebook post, and I just tagged her in it because I wanted everybody to know the kind of mother that I grew up with. I don't know if y'all saw it, but it was when the Braxtons were, the Braxton show, when their mom basically shut them down on the Iyanla Vanzant show. That's the kind of mother I had. She would shut you down in a minute, and then she would she would throw out, if you want to go to the word, I'll tell you what the word say. She would throw it back at you. But that's the kind of mom I have, and I wouldn't trade her for nothing in the world. I really would not. So again, if your mom is alive, make sure you show her some love. Shout out to my other mother. She's resting in heaven. Miss Barbara Johnson, another woman that took me in, loved me like I was her own, never ever told me no when I needed help, when I needed a hug, when I needed support. She was always there with me. So rest in heaven to my second mom, Miss Barbara J. Johnson. We really love you and we miss you. And if you don't know who that is, that's Brother Black's real mother. But just having people in their life like that. So shout out to all the mothers. Shout out to Sister Suzette, who is also a mother. So shout out to you. Thank you for all the sacrifices you've done throughout the years and even presently. So appreciate you. So we want to just talk about the importance of brothers or men in our society. And so I wanted to start the conversation off really, what do you all, has society kind of shifted, in your opinion, when it comes to the focus of men being the head of the household? Is that a thing that's kind of fading out or phasing out? Because we hear a lot of people talking about, the 50-50 situation. We hear a lot of people talking about the partnership rhetoric. And so is that something that's becoming a thing of the past, where the man is really considered to be, the head of the home? What is your opinion on it? Do we still need men as we used to?
Mhm.
I hope nobody thinks that. That we don't need men as we used to. I think what you posed there is a good segue for us to start on, because a lot of society has shifted, as far as what takes priority. We're talking about. I hate to say it, but one of the first things you think about as far as what society focuses on is now the equal rights and these different movements, the ABC community or alphabet community, how we usually say it. But some of that takes away from the conversation of fatherhood, of husbands, and so that conversation is to the wayside or even forgotten in many cases. Mentoring. I see Brother Thomas McIntyre has logged in with us, and that just reminded me when I saw his name. And of course, with Dallas Moore and what the Kings provide, Omega Psi Phi with the Omega Mentoring Program. We can keep going on and on, Root to the Bros, of course, but we can keep going on and on as far as, different groups that are trying to make sure that manhood is not lost in the conversation or doesn't even become the conversation. Because as Brother Bold and I have always mentioned on this show or this platform, is that we had that without someone saying, be a part of this mentoring group. We had our own mentoring group, right, bro? And whether we wanted to be a part of it or not,
No choice.
It wasn't an option.
We were voluntold.
Right. Forget about the Boy Scouts. I remember always, and Dallas will say the same thing. Remember the time we walked up Union Road? We had to find our way back, and it was getting dark 30, and we see this Bronco back then. You see the lights of the Bronco coming up to what we thought was to bring us back home. But my dad rolled up with the Bronco, and roll down the window again. Back in the day, roll down the window, not pressing the button. Roll down the window and say, "Getting kind of dark. Y'all need to head on back." And we're like, "Okay, we about to get a ride." My man was like, "Ooh," and rolled off. So that's the Boy Scouts that we grew up with. So you become a man, as far as mentality, as far as resiliency. That's what I'm getting at. Is that we were taught that very, very early. Discipline. A lot of that was taught very early, in the home, outside the home, on the playing field. No matter where, if you ran track, football, basketball, you got that work. You got that that environment, the atmosphere when it came to the disciplinary approach that all of our coaches who are slash fathers and slash mentors and all that. And so that still exists today, when I talk about the playing field. However, there's a lot of cloudiness in these conversations, going back to your question, but it doesn't take away from the importance or the need for Black men to become spearheading counterparts in the household and in society. But it first begins with raising Black males to be Black men. And that's where I think that transition is kind of lost right now, as far as how that happens, because there's so many other smoke screens that are out there that these kids have to deal with. I mean, I can go on and on, but just to also drop just between media, TV, and music. We talked about that, about 9 months ago, as far as just celebrating Black music, and the 90s for us was the best it has ever been, and it has taken a backslide since. And so we can get into all that earlier, but there's a lot of smoke screens that are out there right now, but it doesn't take away from the need of Black men to step up and be the head of households, as well as be counterparts in society that are leaders, period.
What say you, sis? What do you think? I mean, just in your humble opinion, what do you think about the? Is there still a high expectation, in your opinion, for the men in our society, or has it just become an average, normal thing now for men to not be put on that pedestal anymore as they were before?
Well, sadly, I don't think that the importance of men being in family and society is definitely not getting the amount of attention that it needs to be. So, society is kind of downplaying the need for men in our society. But from where I sit in the African American community and society, we most definitely need our Black men. A Black woman, and especially single mothers, they do the best they do the best that they can with what they're equipped with. But a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man. Let's just face it, we cannot. So we, just as you guys were saying, as you were coming up, you guys were fortunate as well as blessed to have Coach Johnson. I say Coach Johnson with endearingly, but Mr. Johnson, to
No,
kind
you're right, Coach Johnson.
yeah, to mentor you guys. You guys didn't sign no consent forms or nothing like that. Like, it was him, it was part of his DNA, or part of who he was. Unfortunately, I think we're missing. We do live in an era where we have a lot of organizations, but when someone just take it upon themselves, just a man presence in the community to just take youth under their wings, we don't have enough of that today. So, yes, we absolutely need Black men in our community to teach our young men, our young boys, how to be men. So, yeah, we definitely need it. And the women who say they don't, they really do need it too, because men, we can only do so much as women. You know what I'm saying? We can't teach those lessons that we as women are not equipped to teach. So we need our Black men in our community.
That's a good additional perspective, and then that's the counterpart that we need in this platform, as well as this reason why Beautiful is here, because that's a conversation, the side of the conversation that needs to be heard as well, because there is this epidemic going on with single Black households, specific Black female led households, and we have to really reckon with those facts, those stats, and see where we're going wrong. And of course, relationships, that's a different topic. But, it goes beyond just, the one side of what we say, but we also hear from the female point of view, the Black female point of view specifically, as to how that's affecting them as well.
Yeah. And so often I think young parents and just parents who have not had an opportunity to have a strong Black male presence, be in that atmosphere or the environment where a Black strong Black man is, you're thinking that you don't need it there. But there are some lessons that women say, well, you should have known that to young men. How's he gonna know? You know what I'm saying? Who's gonna teach him? So mentorship in our community is very important to teach those lessons about character, integrity, you know what I'm saying, how to hold your head up, how to, be a strong authority when you walk into a room or when you walk into a situation, accountability, how to stand up and take ownership of your wrong. If you're wrong, it takes a real courageous man to admit, I'm wrong. This is what I did wrong. This is how I'm going to correct it. So, those are some of the lessons that I feel like our young people need to know. Right now we're living in it where the generations, the millennials and the Xers and all of them, the general consensus is they feel entitled, or they feel like, what I'm saying, that I'm automatically supposed to get this certain type of treatment. No, some stuff you earn based on what the character you have built in becoming a man. So those important lessons, I think that a strong man is the one that has to lead that structure and lead that lesson. So yeah, we need our Black men.
I want to ask you a question because you said something that somebody has an echo, might need to mute. Um, but I know you said that that men, and I would assume you were referring to black men, um, have to earn their position, and they have to earn that that number one spot. And so when we look across the board, and we're going to get in some of the research in a minute, but when you look across the board, it makes, I know from my perspective, I know it makes it difficult for us to kind of fathom that, because we like to look across the board at other men and in their experience with their women, to really come to somewhat of a conclusion of how we feel like we should be kind of heralded or respected. And I know you were talking about us having to earn that. Would you say that the immigrant or the Mexican that comes across the border that has to stand in front of the Home Depot every day to get work, and many of the times, when they go home and they still have wives and they still have marriages and they still have successful families, when you say earn, could you help me qualify and quantify what does that mean? Because I don't think that's a term that we can use across the board when you say earn that spot, when there are some races, when they come over, they absolutely struggle, leaving four and five families in a home, and and things like that. But it seems like when we talk about the black man in our society, it's almost as if we're asked to work harder to get that level of respect from our women. Is it the same, or is it different? And I'm asking genuinely, because I think this is something that we as black men need to hear from our sisters, because a lot of times we hear about you need to earn, but when we look around, we see a lot of our other counterparts. Not all of them. So I'm not going to do the all, but there are a lot, or a great percentage of them, seemingly have an easier path with their partner. So could you help me understand what that earn really means, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. Sadly, the African American community has been stereotyped and prototyped for many years. And as we have discussed on previous episodes, the statistics are showing that Black men are not at the bottom of the barrel. The statistics are showing that they're good fathers, that they're not the ones that are highly, the most populated, that's incarcerated, that Black men are actually highly educated and very involved in their families. However, the stereotype and the media, mass media, is not portraying that. So unfortunately, there's a few bad bunch that's few bad apples in there that spoils the whole bunch. So there are some deadbeat dads that exist, but they're not the majority. So sadly, people only focus on the negative that our African American men do in society and in our community and in this nation. So it makes it's a difficult plight for a Black man to overcome the stereotypes, because before he actually even acts upon anything, before he even does anything at all, he's already judged by just the color of his skin. The fact that he is a Black man, just that fact alone kind of puts him behind the eight ball sometimes. So yes, I will agree, unjustly and unfairly, Black men do get the short end of the stick sometimes, because we sometimes, as Black women, we don't even give you guys the benefit of the doubt or even the opportunity to prove yourself. We're already putting you in the bunch with the other bad apples, saying, "Oh well, they this, they that, they you guys heard it all." So I mean, I will admit, as a Black female, and I've been very fortunate. Like, I know for a fact that's not the case. I've been very fortunate to be around men who work hard for their families. People who not necessarily is perfect, but who is perfect. But at the same time, what I'm saying, they're educated, they're hardworking, they have integrity. What I'm saying, they're the word. I grew up in a family where your word is your bond. If you say you're gonna do it, do it. You know what I'm saying? And if you didn't do it, you beat yourself up so bad, like you was like never, never gonna do that again. But yeah, to shorten up the answer, yeah, Black men get the short end of the stick. And when we say earn, it is an unjust and unfair thing to say. But in this country that we live in, unfortunately, Black men have to do twice, double, or quadruple what their counterparts are doing, because they are just simply a Black man. So they're always constantly behind the eight ball. But as an African American woman, I think we need to readjust some of our mindsets and some of our thinkings, and kind of look inward and say, instead of saying what's negative about your mate or your counterpart or your Black male, like, what can I do to support my Black male, and eventually support my race. To me, the mentality is, as a Black woman, if I support and uplift the Black man, the Black man is gonna uplift and support the youth, and that's gonna have a perpetual, ripple effect. So it don't really make sense to me to tear down another Black man or another Black person. I feel like that's doing a great disservice and a disjustice to the generations to come. But a lot of people don't think like that. So yeah, I do think you guys get a bad rap. We apologize.
Well, I mean, and I appreciate it. Thank you. And that's really refreshing, to hear that it's recognized from the other side of the fence. That we do actually get a bad rap, or we are held to a different standard within our own communities when it comes to us, standing up and being that figure in our homes, our families, and our communities. Um, I know you were talking about us, the older, kind of holding the younger accountable. I was looking at a study by the week, and actually, well, it was posted by the week, but it says that Harvard, Stanford, the National Bureau of Economic Research, and the U.S. Census Bureau, they studied and measured the mobility by ranking household income, and then they ranked the children after that grew up and got jobs of their own. And what they found out is that there was a significant difference between the generational mobility of others, primarily European, Asian, Indian, Those that were close to us were the American Indian demographic, but there was a significant downward mobility as we had children, and this downward mobility really affected black men more than it had affected black women, and the downward mobility really began to show itself in the marketplace. And it gave more information about wages and working hours and employment rates. And it began to show that late 70s, early 80s, as our counterparts, as they had children, their children went up with them. But the stats show that as we had children, our children got worse. And that intergenerational mobility gap actually has begun to show itself in the late 80s, early 90s, when the crime really increased, when the drug usage really increased, when a lot of our sisters really got a lot of incentives in the workplace and the marketplace, when the affirmative action really started kicking in, when you became a double minority, you were a woman and then you were of color, and so they were able to really hit a lot of their matrix when it came to trying to mix color in the marketplace. The way they went around that was they would hire the black women, because that way they could satisfy that percentage. And what happened was they basically started to take the jobs that men would normally have, or they would normally give to black men. And what happened was, as the men began to decline and the women began to go up, we began to see a huge disparity between wealth, generational wealth, a huge disparity when it came into our marriage percentages and things like that. And what really hit our community was the fact that men lost their importance in the community when they didn't have finances to contribute. And so I wanted to ask you a question, because when we're talking about the importance of black men in the community, are we saying we're important because of what we can contribute financially, or are we saying that we are as important just as a man contributing manhood qualities into our children? Because nowadays, we see it all over TikTok and all over Instagram. Of course, we're talking about The Godfather, Kevin Samuels, talking about the high value man. And at that particular point, it seemed that the average black man makes like 42.5 across the country, and the average white man makes about 52. And a lot of the women were saying they didn't want a guy who was an average earner. They didn't want an average guy. And so we have to ask the question, moving forward, should we be pushing our young men to make money? That should money be their pursuit in the very beginning before they pursue women, or should they be pursuing manhood and then find a good woman along the way? Because a lot of times, we're starting to see that. I seen something yesterday where a girl said she wouldn't even date a guy who had a 9 to 5 because she likes to travel. She's spontaneous and she can't pick up and go to Jamaica tomorrow because he got to go to work. And this has become this is the new pandemic, that's really spreading around. And so again, we have to ask the question, because we have to really. I've got an 18-year-old son who's getting ready to go to college,
Right.
uh, and so at that particular point, what is the focus at this point? Should he be concerned about a partner, or should he be concerned about his money first?
Um, if I may, Brother Dwayne, did you want to comment before I get into it?
Sure. I mean, I'll defer to you, ladies first, if you like. But yeah, sure, I do have a comment. But go ahead if you like.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay. Well, personally, I think that if we focus on making sure that he gets his manhood in order first, the money's gonna come. Because once you instill those characteristics of what it means and what it takes to be a real stand up, strong man, he's automatically going to do the things that it takes to make the money, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So you should focus on the character of the man first, not the money. Because you can have money and have bad character, you know? But I think if you have you have instilled in the young man all the skills it takes to be a strong young man, because if you do that, he's going to make sure that his finances is in order. He's going to make sure that he has integrity. He's going to make sure that his work ethic is high enough to sustain himself, and then outside of himself, if he should decide to have a family. So to me, we need to focus on the most important, what's gonna control the man. You know what I'm saying? The man, once he gets his characteristics and his priorities straight, he's gonna be able to control the money. But if you're having the money to control the man, come on, that's backwards to me.
I can definitely get with that for sure. Learning manhood first, and letting the rest fall in place as it goes, rather than the relationship being the priority out the gate. My addition to that is that the way that we were brought up. One is that, again, I mentioned the indirect, informal mentorship just has to happen. It has to be a part of our culture and society. Going back to just like the ritual rites of passage that we discussed a couple weeks ago. In addition to that, one of the things that I think is very important is that men have to, specifically out of that transition of the rites of passage into manhood, start thinking about, how do I find myself? If I can probably better explain that, but sometimes we jump into relationships too soon, and we haven't really discovered who we are. I get that from Steve Harvey's "Think Like a Man, Act Like a Woman," or "Act Like a Lady." Excuse me. In that book, he does describe that a lot of times women are trying to lock a man down, and quite frankly, we're not the ones to be locked down that early, because it takes time for, as we already know, the sayings always go that women mature much quicker than men. That's a fact. And so in that immaturity, we do a lot of things in the process of trying to, as the old folks would say, sow our oats, right? But in the process of that, we are, as Steve Harvey says, fishing. If you read the book or had access to some of his quotes in there, but it's a game of fishing, and we do have to find ourselves. And to better explain that as well, is that we have to solidify who we are as men. We have to have employment, so that we feel like we are secure as a man. That goes a long way, because otherwise, you're holding yourself as a man, or the woman is also holding you accountable for bringing in a certain amount of spearheading of the relationship monetarily that we're expected to bring in, and we just haven't found that yet. And so that can be a cause or root of some of the arguments in an early relationship that is just too soon. The other thing that I think goes a long way is that we have to, as Brother Bold has in his background there, a picture of a lion. We have to find other lions. I think that's one thing that's missing as well. One, we're not teaching to identify lions or identify with the lion that's within us, because that lion has been neutered, if you will, along the way through media, through, as you said, we sometimes are behind the eight ball. I think some of that can be, we can elude some of that by way of how we are raised, or how we're raising young men to be in the mindset that we are not the minority. This planet is not a minority brown. That's another discussion, but don't be fooled by society saying that we are a minority, especially in somewhere like Valdosta. I mean, we're 50+% of the population here, so we're not a minority. So I'd always take a case of disagreement with that. But the point is that that's a mindset, that's a mental challenge that that's a label that's been put on us, and we tend to think from an inferior standpoint indirectly because of that. But as I was saying before, is that whether or not you're raised in an inferior state of poverty or an inferior state of mentality, we have to start finding and seeking and guiding our young men to be with other men. And that's another way that is sometimes contradictory in an early immature relationship, because so again, saying sometimes a woman may not want, her guy out late, whatever. I appreciate, for instance, Brother Bo, when he comes into town, my wife knows where I'm going to be. The Bo calls, we going to be out somewhere, and it's because it's a productive man conversation that is necessary for me to be able to get off my chest, and for him to do likewise, for things that we chat about that only us two can vibe with, or we go to another brother's house that's mutually at the same level we are. And that's because we've been through that maturation state. Now I get, young bros, you might not trust your young bro man to go out with his other young bro. So that's just a case of that. What I'm saying is that's too early to be in that type of relationship then. But the point is that I like to see more groups of men in society, and that the only reason you see that now, especially in the Lowndes County, Valdosta area, is primarily due to our fraternities. That's a lot of where our men are as far as collectively together, but we're not really forming societal groups like just African American groups. Like, for instance, a good example of that would be the Kings. That's a group where you got positive, productive, forward-thinking men that are impacting their community. We need more of that. We need a society of Black contractors. And maybe there is. Somebody can correct me out there on the chat, but we need a society of Black contractors. We need, and I've said it before, I always will say it, we need some sort of society of Black businessmen. Something there where Black businessmen can get together and start a think tank, if you will. All right, so those are the areas that I see in other places, such as DC, Atlanta, where a lot of us are beyond where we are here in South Georgia because of the way that we move through society. We move in a different way where this area has that stigma against Black forward-thinking men, and it makes a lot of our culture here be cautious in the way that they step, in the way that they move, the way that they think and speak out or not speak out. Imagine, as I think a lot of the council women I hear, and the names, I mean, I ain't not shy about saying them, they probably would say the same thing between Councilwoman Cody and Councilwoman Tooley specifically. They've always asked for more people to step up at the city council meetings and be heard and take a stance and speak up on behalf of others. Imagine if we had a group of men that always were present at city council meetings and from time to time spoke up on certain issues. I think that's really what would make a difference in this area, specifically when it comes to the importance of Black men in society. Just really us pairing up and grouping a pride of lions together.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was very fortunate enough to kind of listen in on some conversations growing up, and I would hear the older gentlemen say, like, they would take a young men and kind of take them under their wing and teach them life skills, and they would say comments like, you either take them in now and teach them, or you can talk to them when they're breaking into your house later on. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of speaks to you can really re-guide or redirect a young person's future by just taking the time out. And we have a viewer tonight, Cedric. He was talking about how he mentors. The purpose of him is being a coach for baseball, but they're learning life skills. You know what I'm saying? They're learning things that's going to mold them as a young man. So we need more people to do that. Go outside of themselves and go beyond the mission.
And if I can add, because Thomas actually, thank you, Thomas, for adding this in the chat. This is something I was thinking also before I started. I guess me rambling got away from this, but this area that he speaks about, as far as strategically placing qualified individuals on boards and commissions, that's really where we got to push our segment of community forward. Is that you've got to apply, volunteer. Primarily, the application process in the city is to be on a board, commission, or committee within the city. And then from that point, you can actually nominate others perhaps, and you can be on boards of nomination committees as well. But that's where most of the power shift is in this type of community, is on those boards, those authorities and committees. Shout out to brother Rico Ramsey. He sits on one of the zoning appeal boards in the city. And like I said before, you have a voice at that point. And it's one of those, the being the first type of symptom that you have to go through, because you're always sort of looked at as the voice of Black Valdosta, or your word doesn't really break through because you're just the only Black voice at the table. I've had to endure some of that, and you voice your opinion, and you're not really being listened to for the most part. But if you keep pressing and you're holding people accountable based on learning the rules of the game, such as Robert's Rules of Order. Shout out to the fraternities, because I know at least Omega Psi Phi, I know we bashed that in. I'm sorry, not literally. No hazing is tolerated in Omega Psi Phi.
Absolutely.
But, disclosure. But Robert, you got to learn Robert's Rules of Order. I've seen school boards here, and I'm going to name which one, but I've seen school boards question what they're supposed to do next with regards to handling a basic voting situation that dealt with Robert Rules of Order. I've seen some people on boards actually are not even familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, and you're on a board. So, I mean, we have to do some, just like what, all these mentoring groups are doing, there should be an opportunity right there for us to start educating our kids about even that simple type of approach to having meetings. But he speaks to a very important point here, that we've got to get onto these boards, and we've got to be able to pull others onto the board as well.
Well, I know that, and I appreciate the conversation, because I think it's really been helpful, with kind of establishing the importance and the matriculation of our men, from boys to men, from high school, college, up into ranks, being effective and impactful in their communities. I know one thing we I'm sure it was just by omission, we didn't talk about the importance of Black teachers and Black administrators. A study showed that our children spend, I think it's an average about 8 to 10 hours at school. They spend about 8 to 12, I think it's 6 to 8 hours on social media, on their cell phones. And so it seems like society influences our children way more than we do. I know growing up in the public school system, I had a total of three black male teachers. Anybody else that was Black was sports related. How impactful do you think having, especially now, how impactful do you think having a Black educator, not just in one in middle school and maybe one in high school or two in high school? I mean, if you have more than 2 Black teachers nowadays, you're blessed. Unless you live in a highly populated area where it's primarily minority, or primarily us. Let's talk about that for a second. Like the people who actually indoctrinate us or teach us. How important is that for them to look like us? I mean, does that play a part in us being able to be established in our communities?
Absolutely. Just jumping in on that, just because, as you just said, the indoctrination process begins at school, whether daycare, depending on the daycare you go to, or the style of daycare you go to. But definitely, if you're going to be in public school or sending your kids to public school, it's an indoctrination process that's happening. And so if we're going to go through a schooling system, it's very important that my child sees somebody that looks like them. And in many cases, especially in the county school, that has not happened, and it won't happen for many others. But we balance that in other ways, and we have to balance that in other ways. But to the gist of your question, it's very important from an identity standpoint. All right, it goes back to what we were talking about before. If we keep it, male to male perspective in schooling, is that it's important for a Black male child to see a black male educator, administrator, or whatnot in that school, because that's somebody they can identify with. In a lot of cases, if there is conflict in the way that that child is received in the classroom, a lot of times, such as, again, shout out to again, we're gonna do a bro roll call in a minute, but shout out to brother Oscar Lee as well, because man, I'm about to go Bergman, Tony Bergman. I mean, never mind, but we'll bring some more up as I think about it. But the point is that I know that these brothers in the education system relate very well to what they see in the school when there are problems that arise, and they're able to diffuse it before they send a child off somewhere. Whereas in many of these occasions, when you cannot relate, or a person cannot relate to the child in any capacity, they see that child as a troublemaker. So that is one of the reasons that it's important for a black child to be able to identify with a black educator or an administrator within the school system. In addition to that, I talked about the identity piece there. There is that indirect mentoring that happens along the way, and that's what we were talking about before. So I don't really have to explain that, but that process occurs because, as you said, 8 to 10 hours of schooling per day, or at least that you're on the school grounds, you at least are seeing someone, if you can, in an authoritative position. It would help, because we already know that there's this, this savior syndrome or picture that is illustrated through the movies. There's this savior syndrome or illustration that's depicted in a lot of our literature that is being taught to our kids, versus literature and media that actually is representative of the culture that children come from. So that to me is a gap, and it's a problem naturally. I mean, if you had a European American child being taught roots, or European American child being taught Mansa Musa, how unfair would that household feel with regards to the indoctrination process that their children are receiving? Oh, by the way, they're already fighting against that. It's called critical race theory. So again, this is the point why we need to fight just as well for things that seem to be normal for us. It's normalized. But if we present a drop of realism in history, or as they label it, mislabel it as critical race theory, there goes up the red flag from that side of the counter argument. And so we need to make sure that we're implementing the same strategies as well when it comes to protecting our kids and the culture that they're not receiving.
It's funny that not funny, but it's intriguing because our topic tonight is talking about the importance of black males in society. And we talked about, we kind of segued and we talked about the importance of black male educators. And it's ironic, that when we were talking about black male educators, and I appreciate all of the people that Brother Said has listed, because a lot of these individuals affected us. Velma Perry was like my mama reincarnated in school. That woman would snatch us up. I mean, she's going on now, but that woman would grab a hold of you and let you know that I done talked to your mama and she gave me permission. That type of conversation. Miss Cressy Sermons, Miss Thomas, Miss Flowers, Miss Simmons. I mean, we can go on and on about the people who really, really impacted our life. But what we're not recognizing is that these were black women.
Well, I was just trying to remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that really speaks to my question, because if you look at the percentage of black educators in the United States, it's only 7%. 7% of that means 93% of our education system does not look like us. 7% they're black. Guess what the percentage of black male teachers are?
All right, I'm about to say it's much lower. Yeah, okay.
So, but when you look at, when you look at our presence in Miss Juanita Miller, there's another one. If you look at our presence in the prison system, if you look at our presence In family court, you look at our presence in, unemployment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's definitely a direct correlation between those that the authoritative figures in your life and the people who are teaching you and indoctrinating you on a regular basis don't look like you. And then when you get those that look like you, the majority of the time they're women. And so it seems that a lot of our black males, society wants them mothered and not fathered, even when it comes to the educational system, because 80% of our children are born in single parent homes. And so they go from mother to mother, and they get very little interaction with a father. And if they do get interaction with a father, it's because they've gotten in trouble at school, because majority of the time they were administrators. And so we got a lot of our, I was just about to go there, OG. A lot of our young men seem to only be able to function when they're mothered, because they were mothered at home and then they were mothered in school. And so that's the issue that we have to get back, because it seems as if society does not want the male energy in the society, especially educating the children. Because if you have a black male in the system to help continue that fatherhood or that fathership, it will curtail a lot of that behavior. Now we go back. Thank you, Brother Johnson, because I was going to bring up some of these people. Coach Johnson, Mr. Williams, Mr. Fred Davis, who was like a father to a lot of us. Rest in peace to the bros. Mr. Lawton, Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark was another one. He was another. I mean, he didn't take anything, and it seemed Mr. Wells, bro. See all these people, these men. It seems like there was a strategic removal of this black male presence in the school system, but at the same time, while there was a shift in the hiring of black males, and that black males wanted to go into education, there was a rise in black men going to prison, and black men getting into the judicial system, black boys going to alternative schools, black boys being sent to boys' homes and group homes and things like that. And so, again, when we talk about the importance, it seems like society does not want our presence, and in many cases, the family court system and our personal interaction with each other seems like we don't want it either, because now we're pushing. Our marriage rate has completely diminished. We're not pushing to grow families together. We're not pushing to grow strong family connections anymore. Everybody wants to be an individual. And so we have to ask the question, because if we look at that side of it, if we look at the family portion of it, we look at the education side of it, and then we look at the relationship side, it seems as if men in society are no longer sought after, because, again, education system, 2%, 98% of the system, 93% doesn't look like us, 7% looks like us, and 2% of that 7% are men. So what are we going to do? Because it's directly affecting our family relationships, because it's like a snowball effect. No man at home, no man in the school, no man in support, well, outside of sports, and that's not always the case. But it seems like the man is kind of being phased out, because now we've got this new wave coming in where now I can decide to be a man. And so now manhood is now questioned. And these are real issues that we're going to have to face, because what are we going to do in the next 10, 20 years? When the man has been phased out, no man in school, hardly, no man at home, marriages is going down the drain, and then now I can choose to be a man tomorrow. What are we going to do? I mean, are we looking to, kind of put that man back on the pedestal, or are we still trying to make sure that he's phased out but still recognized here and there?
So I guess one of the questions also is, well, men aren't necessarily being erased from the planet. So, and we've got a host of men that, we refer to, but we got a host of men also that are on our platform here as well, in the chat family. Where's the organization of our men if they're not necessarily in the school system? And I only say that rhetorically because clearly men are out there, but this is the question to the audience. Why are we not involving ourselves in the capacity that we need to be and that we're talking about on the show? So I mean, that's something we can discuss, and I do want to hear obviously some chat responses as well, some theories.
But one thing I did not bring up, also in the church, in our faith-based communities, me being, leader of a nonprofit faith-based organization, 95% of the constituency is female. And so it seems like everything is becoming imbalanced because even if you look at leadership in the workplace, now the percentages of those in leadership roles is now shifting. And so, like you said, we're here, but it's almost as if we're intentionally taking a back seat.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
In that intentional declination of who we are and our voice, is that because of the response we've gotten to hold on to that traditional, old, antiquated, what some people call perspective of what a man is? Or is it because society is now watering down what manhood is? And so instead of us arguing and fussing about what a man is, a lot of us are saying, I'm going to let y'all have that. And so where are we going with this? Because this is a real situation. Because I saw a TikTok earlier today, and there was a man who had fingernails and he had toenails, and they were I was going to say press on, but they're not press on. Acrylics. And the little boy, he was probably 6 or 7. And he asked the guy, he was like, "Why you got nails on it?" He said, "Well, my friend put them on." He said, "You a boy?" He said, "I know." And the little boy looked at him and he said, "Boys don't," he's like, "Boys don't do that." He's like, "My mama said boys don't do that." He's like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm going to take them off soon." And they cut the video. And it's like now manhood is being so muddied with a lot of other things. And so when we have men who were raised with guys like Mr. Wells and Coach OC and Coach C. Wright and all those other guys who were men, now there's a great contradiction between what manhood is, and society is telling us that what we consider manhood is not manhood. And so at that particular point, what are we expected to do to continue to be a pillar in our society is when we begin to exude what we were taught manhood is, right. Society said, no, that ain't manhood.
So I think that we need, I don't see a whole lot of, I can't call defeat. Because I see like what Thomas says, it's a direct attack on manhood. And that's basically some of the theming that we've been talking about here. On a continuation of that, as far as where I'm coming from, is that I have 2 boys. You have a boy, Bo. Suzette, forgive me if I'm missing a male in your 3. Is that correct? You have a boy in your 3 children?
I have two young men, yeah.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Okay, so you have 2 male children. And so, at least from a bold and black standpoint, I would like to say clearly that I'm affecting the man that I'm raising. And so I'm not understanding where, despite what society says and despite what media presents, I still have control over this because, son, you're not watching this. Turn off the TV. Or, all right, we're not listening to this. What I'm saying is I don't think that we're taking enough initiative and control over our situation. This is a wartime strategy called propaganda. And we're just, like you said, taking a back seat and say, you know what, not my fight. But some of us, like I just called out yourself and myself, Bo, that, you know, we have decided that we're not going to just sit idly on this. We're still going to raise young men, despite what society calls a man now. I'm very clear what a man is. And, you know, just like when, you know, congratulations to our new Supreme Court justice. But when asked, you know, well, what is a woman? And we're refusing to answer questions, you know, certain things that I'm like, I get politics, but sometimes we need to take a firm stance and just answer the damn question. And those are the type of things that I'm like, we are taking a watered down stance on things in order to progress. Hold on, sorry, hit the microphone there. We're taking a backward stance. Huh?
You got a little passionate, didn't you?
Yeah, a little passionate. Hit the keyboard real hard there, right? I mean, but we just take a backward stance sometimes because we want to progress, but that progression hurts the rest of our family and society, that is. And I'm just not getting with some of the things that we accept in our culture. I get that there is an attack on the Black family as well as specifically the Black male, but what are we doing about that? And even if I'm an absent dad, what am I doing about that in my own community? I may not have a male child. I may not be with my son's mother. Well, if I'm not, then who else am I affecting? All right, you know what I'm saying? So I think we have to take a better responsibility in this wartime strategy that is being affected against the Black male being raised. I really think we need to take an honest look at that and an honest approach.
So with that, thank you for that great alley-oop, because of course, you know, we're in the fourth quarter of our show tonight, and this really transitions into giving opportunity to
well,
talk about it, because
well, while you still up in the air with that alley-oop, I am going to pay homage to all my Black educators. I felt like, man, we're not talking about my Black educators that was in my life. Cedric was really doing a roll call for me. But yeah, so I was also very fortunate to have, you know, the Mr. Clemens in my life. As a matter of fact, shout out to his whole family. Like, that whole family is a family of educators. Betty Thomas, I mean, a Black math teacher. Come on, man. Come on. I got to shout her out. I'm sorry. Irene Miller, you know, Randall's mom, like that. She was a lifesaver for me. Charles Todd, oh my God, brilliant man, brilliant musician. Fred Davis, I mean, the list goes on. I was like, man, I want to shout out my Black educators too, because, you know, I had opportunities to, you know, sit and gleam under them too, you know. So I wanted to give a shout out to them. But, you know, from my standpoint, I don't think Black educators are allowed to be men because there's so much red tape of what they can and can't say to a student, how they can and can't interact with a student. You know, unfortunately, what they say is immediately directly to, okay, are they going to get another contract next year? Are they going to be, you know, reprimanded for, you know, being encouraged and going outside of the box? So it's a lot of different little tiny boxes that educators have to be put in nowadays. And I think that restricts, you know, a lot of people from wanting to even get into the education arena, not to mention the salary based upon the workload. It doesn't match up. So a lot of African Americans are going to more profitable professions, and education.
And as they should, in some cases. I mean, I know that we're talking education right now, but, you know, I'm gonna shout out, you know, the line of education I come from is that we need to be promoting more STEM related activities in our children as well. I know there's a resourcing gap for that, but, you know, that's one area we got to work on, especially in Lowndes County, is that, you know, we're doing a lot of labor intensive type of industry development and entrepreneurs in our area versus innovators. And that's really a lack that we have in this area compared to, our northern counterpart in Georgia and then elsewhere in society. I think it was Cedric earlier, Montgomery, that said we need to teach our kids more than just how to throw a football, make a tackle, shoot a basketball, and really expand what we're teaching our kids. And I get it as far as, you teach what you know. I saw today, and granted, hey, I'm teaching my daughter, track, but I also am hard on them when it comes to their science, math, and arithmetic, with regards to math. But so there's the balance very well. But I saw today at track practice, they were doing ninth grade football on the adjacent field. And I saw this like little, I guess about 6, 7, 8-year-old little boy with his father, and on the side area, just kind of in the parking area of the stands. And he's kind of throwing the ball, not only throwing the ball, but teaching him like form tackle. And I'm just like, I know that's in just a frame of the day for that family, but it just makes me wonder, because I see the output. I see how much we put into sports and celebration of sports, that I wonder sometimes how much magnification and focus there is when it comes to football and sports in that one family, in that instance. Is that an all-day conversation? Is that something that the child gets in trouble for if he doesn't do well on the field? Is that something that, they spend X number of hours after school at the field practicing, versus getting work done in some profitable areas, versus teaching our kids just that we talk about the fun, or talk about or teach the fundamentals of hitting, or the fundamentals of running the ball? Do we teach the fundamentals of entrepreneurship at home? You see what I'm saying? I mean, we got so much opportunity to be very directive with our kids as far as what they learn, but we really take a lot of times the easy way out, and we don't explore their other talents as well. I think we talked about this before with regards to how we're, black and bold here. We are raising our kids specifically, despite us being football all-stars. So that's one of the areas that I think we need to challenge ourselves as well, is, make sure that we're teaching the fundamentals of business, just life lessons, how to deal with adversity. I mean, these life skills, we talked about earlier, but I think we would eliminate a lot of the problems and setbacks, specifically here in Lowndes County or Valdosta, if we actually focused on raising kids, being present as well. And as we said before, coming up as group of men to some of these areas of focus, whether it's counsel, whether it's business opportunities. I mean, that ain't alone. I mean, I don't know where there is, as far as a group of black males getting together to form a partnership or business. I haven't seen it, but it would go off well. We have a bunch of black contractors. I mean, so I think we could go a long way. I don't think we're just really impressing upon ourselves how well we could do if we actually form a tribe of black men. And of course, that can extend beyond just men. But I think we do ourselves a disservice by being absent and letting the status quo challenges that we have take hold of our culture.
So with that, are we good now?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay. I would just, I just want to make sure. But but one thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that we talked about all of that, that should be done, and you talked about, business and social etiquette and understanding the importance of manhood. As we're in the fourth quarter, I'm gonna go back and repeat what I was saying, that we're in the fourth quarter. And at that particular point, and since we're in the fourth quarter, and of course, again, in honor of the Godfather, that's one thing that he taught us. That was, for his first 3 to 4 years on YouTube. That's what he taught. You know what? Put his photo up. We got to give him some honor time to bring him up. Because I know it just gets on Sister Beautiful nerves. I just want to do it. There we go.
And by the way, shout out. I'm sorry, but shout out before it gets away from me, Cedric Montgomery, yes, I definitely remember your son Cedric Jr., outstanding young man, and I just actually saw him probably about a month ago at the ribbon cutting for the new high school facility.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but as you know, that was something that kind of helped steer the conversation. But I definitely didn't want to take it down the road that most people were expecting. But one of the main things that he taught men for the first 3 or 4 years on YouTube was the very thing you were talking about. You know, teaching men on how to step their game up.
Yes, Sabrina.
Teaching men about, you know, the importance of you know, getting your money right, and the importance of establishing your wolf pack. You know, the importance of having those accountability partners, the importance of understanding that you just can't go out and expect any woman, you know, to submit to you because you're a man. Get your money up, get your value up. You know, he talked about men getting in the gym. He talked about men, you know, increasing their value so they can be in those boardrooms, become movers and shakers in the community. But he also talked about the fact that we have to do this because in order for us to get back to the statistic that I brought up earlier about that intergenerational gap, we can do all of that. We can have the businesses. We can be principals. We can be educators. He said we can do all of these things. But at the end of the day, it means nothing if we don't have a legacy, which means we have to interact with women in our community and the children that we create. And so with that being said, manhood has to be taught by men. And when we get men in our community to teach us manhood, I have to ask this question. Is manhood something that requires a chaser, or should you take manhood straight? Because a lot of our manhood that we've been taught is considered toxic. And so the only time we can really share the truth is that we have to chase it with something. And so moving forward, should we be teaching our men to be like us, or should we teach them to water down what we taught them? I want to make sure I get that. I want to put that out because, again, we've got society telling us what our grandfathers were was not manhood. Or they're telling us our grandfathers were men, but when we do what granddaddy did, then we're told that's not manhood. So we need to figure out, I want us to be able to lay out what is manhood. And I want it to be laid out for the platform so we all can have an understanding of what it is. So we don't continue this vitriol between male and female about, well, I think this is a man and I think this is a man. I think we need to come to a consensus about what is manhood, or should manhood be debated? This is a question for the panel and for our viewers. Because again, if we're teaching our men to have standards, if we're teaching our men, you know, to go out and be able to properly vet the people in our community and not just, you know, kind of bump into anything and then, you know, just take it as it is, should we be teaching our young men to have standards, to, you know, to do that? Okay, thank you, Brother Thomas. He said there's no debate. So at that particular, if you're saying there's no debate, then why are we still having this conversation about what manhood is between black men and black women? Because we're still having this issue. And I know we like to bounce around it. I know we don't want to talk about it. But if we don't marry, we don't have a problem having children. We don't have a problem having sex. We don't have a problem, having these casual relationships. But when it comes to us really closing that intergenerational gap that I talked about in the very beginning, guess what? Harvard, the Census Bureau, and all those other ones, guess what they said is the first factor in closing that gap, and that's black men marrying black women. So how do we close this gap in making sure that we can coexist while still maintaining our manhood?
The reason I'll just baseline it then after what you just said is that the reason that there is a debate and there's this tweak of what manhood is, and I would just say, from a sense of it's the subjective nature of what manhood has been defined, or being a male is defined by outward society. We've listened too long for other cultures to define what manhood or being men or toxic masculinity is. And we've let that soak into our culture. And we've allowed a lot of individuals to speak on that behalf, and it's not true. And so we have to go back to what we actually know as manhood for our culture.
So what is that? Let's identify what manhood for our culture is. Because I don't want us to say, well, because what it sounds like is we then are given the license to say, well, Asian men have their version of manhood, and American Indians have their version of manhood, and then black men have their version of manhood. Mm-hmm. And so if we say it in that way, it gives our counterparts the ability to kind of define according to what race you're with.
So and I'm saying that is plausible, because of rituals that took place and are passed down through different cultures and tribes. And the problem, I'll restate it in the sense, and because we went with different cultures there, the problem is that European American society has started to define for everybody what manhood is. And that's one of the roots of the problem. But you're right, is that we should define for us what that is.
So let's do that. What is I don't want to say manhood, because then it's really ambiguous and it allows us to really just plop something out there. What is effective, impactful manhood?
So
because we could have a loose goose out there claiming he a man, and he's just dropping children everywhere, and he's just really irresponsible, and that's not manhood. Manhood isn't what's between your legs. And so we want to make sure that we share with with the watchers in the community to help us define and understand what is effective manhood.
So we look at the host of names, male names. So greatness to all the queens that we named, but to the question as far as manhood, we looked at Charles Todd, O.C. Williams, C. Wright, et cetera, et cetera. What did all of them define? And I'll just throw out there, just to start the conversation, one of the things that bubbles up as far as the characteristic is a high level of discipline. Whether that's outward being disciplinary and or having internal discipline.
What does that look like? Because I want us to communicate this, because we have our sisters watching, and I want them to get a great understanding of what we consider manhood to be. I don't want us to continue to have this crazy argument back and forth, and then the man dies and you happy he died because he was trying to bring men back to manhood. I mean, come on, let's really call a spade a spade. I mean, at the end of the day, he was teaching men to know your value, you know what I'm saying, and not accept anything less than that. That's what our sisters are taught. And so if we're going around saying we're a man, we're this, that, we're this, that, and the third, what does discipline look like from a man's point of view? Because if we're going to reclaim our position in our communities, our sisters also need to understand to be able to identify what manhood is. I'm raising a daughter.
So, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. And this was something that my wife saw in me when it came to discipline. And again, sometimes discipline is one of those hush-hush words, or it gets the bad rep because it sounds like, corporal punishment, if you will, when you say discipline or disciplinary. All right, but I'm gonna give you one that's off key from that. All right, so when it comes to financial recognition and financial discipline, one of the things that I guess my wife saw that I take for granted is that I'm very disciplined and I'm very disciplinary about how I spend money, even though I have it. All right, I'm not weak towards temptation, and you can take this also in disciplinary ways to where this can go according to manhood. But in this case, talking about money, there's a disciplined approach. We can also talk about relationships. There's a very disciplined approach.
So stop right there, because
Mhm.
I want us to really itemize this as much as we can, because Brother Thomas is right. It's a long conversation.
It is.
But it is self-control. It is financial discipline, financial fidelity also.
So that's the way to sum it up. Like you said, it's basically just self-control. We can move on for the conversation's sake, but he pretty much summed it up. Discipline is just self-control.
Right. And so, and when we talk about that self-control, we want to make sure that it's communicated so it can be understood on both sides. So financial self-control, financial fidelity, being able to ensure that the money that you're I guess making, or whatever that you're accruing, that it's used in a positive manner to benefit your tribe, your home, etc., or your goals, whatever, whomever you're with. When we talk about relationship self-control, that means that you're not entertaining, any outside sources. Being sexually disciplined. What about spiritually disciplined?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have a faith and be able to stick to the tenets of that faith, knowing that this is a core value to who you are. What about emotional discipline? Being a man emotionally disciplined, when you're a man who's able to have emotions but have them under control. What are some other areas of discipline that we could touch on, or did I hit them all, or did we hit them all? Because I know that discipline is a huge thing in manhood, but one thing we don't talk a lot about, or a lot of things that we kind of make it almost a necessary evil, is masculinity.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of times gets water thrown on the fire, because as soon as a man becomes masculine, then he becomes.
So you'd have to also dive into that as far as what is masculinity. I know we defined it on the other show, but that's an area where we have to define as well, what masculinity is, because it does vary from person to person.
Okay. All right. So of course, if we looked at, of course we remember that masculinity definitely it was qualities of attributes of characteristics of a man of vigor, a man who was
you see how that works though in society, as far as the qualities and characteristics of a man, but just like society does, they're questioning what a man is.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's the problem, right?
Right. And that's what I was saying earlier about, the qualities of men is now questioned so much, that now the men who are men, who were taught to be men and told that we're supposed to be masculine, we're supposed to be virile, we're supposed to be brave, we're supposed to be all this stuff. And now when we exemplify those things, then our masculinity then is tied to our money. And so that's why I'm asking these questions, to make sure that we can all understand what a man is without his money, because money doesn't make a man. And I know I wanted to get back to that, because Sister Suzette said earlier that if he's a man, then he'll get the money. But it almost says that a man who's a man isn't a man if he's not making a lot of money. You see what I'm saying? Because if the guy is a trash collector, or if he's a ditch digger, he ain't making a whole lot of money, but he still could have discipline and self-control and all that stuff. And so I think
I didn't put a dollar sign on money, because the way I was raised, any honest job is an honorable job.
Right.
So I didn't put a dollar sign on money. I said if you focus on his characteristics first, then he will be self-disciplined enough to make the money that is needed to sustain a family. Not, you know what I'm saying? The general consensus is that a woman wants a man that makes six figures. Not every woman wants that. She'll be satisfied with a trash collector that treats her and her family and takes care of their little tribe and makes sure that they're safe within that tribe. So once you focus on his characteristics, he's going to adjust. If he chooses to have a woman that wants a six-figure man, then he's going to do what it takes to make those six figures to secure whatever his tribe needs. But if he's a man who's a trash collector and his woman and his children are satisfied with that and they're whole within their unit, His purpose is to make sure that he has what it suffices for his family.
Sabrina.
But what I'm saying is what that does is that clouds the trajectory of a man, because what you're saying is, well, I'm saying from a man's perspective, because what you're saying is that if a man is what if he's content with making $42,000 a year and you're making $100,000? I
Well,
mean, at that particular point, statistics show that that and there's a scripture that talks about that when a woman starts taking care of a man, she starts having disdain for him because he's not a provider. And so at that point,
There's another quality.
is manhood really providing?
mhm.
Well, I have to ask the question, providing what? Because if a man is content in our community, because again, we're moving forward, we got this new technology, we've got this new remote working situation, we've got all these new opportunities where we can make all this money online and at home. But what if he's content with making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and you've got two master's degrees making $150,000, and you keep saying you want an ambitious man? What if he is ambitious on his job, wanted to stay there at $40,000, $50,000?
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm totally listening to you, but one of our queens is coming in tonight, and she is totally entertaining me. Sabrina is like, bring on the trash man. If the trash man know how to treat us right, we okay with the trash man. Bring him on. I'm not saying that I think what you're trying to say that I'm saying is that the ability to provide a certain dollar amount is
Mm-hmm.
equally tied to his ability to be a man. Those are autonomous of each other. And I think most women who want a real man or a strong man in their lives, they know that it's autonomous.
So what if that strong man, define a strong man? Because a strong man to a man is different from a definition of what a lady would say a strong man is.
For a woman looking for what's considered a strong man in her life is the person that's going to be the head of their tribe, the head of their family, and willing to encompass whatever the need is for their circle to sustain it, to make it sustainable, self-sustainable. The man is going to be the head of whatever that ecosystem is.
So what if that ecosystem is when you met him, he was making $45,000. He
Uh-huh.
had a modest home, 12 to 1,500 square foot. He
Hmm.
was happy with his 10, 15-year-old vehicle.
Yeah.
Are you going to then come in and say, well, I'm going to flip that and we're going to move to a bigger house and have more bills and increase our debt to income ratio?
Hmm.
Or are you going to say, okay, babe, I'll move into your 12 to 1,500 square foot home. You can keep making your $40,000 to $50,000. Keep your old car, and I'm not going to ask you to upgrade your life because you came in.
Hmm. We always talk about taking it back to the basics, right?
Right.
So back in the day, women had dowries. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? It's like when you came to, of course, the man would choose you, or if it was arranged marriage or whatever. So the woman would bring her worth. She would bring it out, and then collectively they add it together, and they make that thing work. So I think when we're talking about me as a woman, and I think I speak for a lot of women, we're more interested in the person, you know what I'm saying? In the person's character. Because when you bring in two forces together, if that person character based, that's materialistic what you're talking about. Material things come and go.
So I have to ask you a question. Why is it? This is the question that I've always gotten ever since I was 18 until I'm 44 now. Um, when you well, I haven't had to meet anybody new, but when I was in the dating in situation, um, why is it that we're always asked, well, what do you do?
Hmm.
Because what do you do is almost a code word to let you gauge where I am economically, or are we taking this wrong? Because of course we have locker room talk. Of
Hmm.
course, men have their perspective of why you're asking. We know why you're
I
asking.
think not necessarily. I think that's a valid point. You
Why?
know what I'm saying? Why? because now we well now it's definitely a valid point. But
Why?
even then, a woman does not want to date someone that's a criminal. She does not want to date someone that's a scammer. You know what I'm saying? You want to be that's biblical concept too. You want to be equally yoked. So if I ask you what you do and it's some red flags coming up, then you're not the person for me. If I ask you what you do, and based on your education, if you what I need and I'm what you need, then we gotta get together and make this thing happen. That's a valid point. It's
Okay.
not
Well,
necessarily based on finances all the time. It's also a little intel about that person's character.
okay. So the way you pose that answer, let us know that it's probably 80-20. I want to find out where you are financially, and 20% I want to see what kind of guy you are. You said there is a little. I'm just asking. I just want to know because these are the questions that we're asked, and then we keep moving along, we think that we're going to move our culture along and asking these sideways questions and not really being upfront. Let's really be honest. You all are super super concerned about where we are financially because a lot of times you equate us by what we can bring to the table financially
And I'll
instead of the.
and I'll add to the context of what, because I understand what Brother Bold is saying. I also understand as well as what Beautiful is saying as well. And I think the context of where you two are coming from are in different phases of life. And I think that if a lot of women are really honest about where they were 20 years ago, it would fit in line with Brother Bold is challenging. And if we're honest about where a lot of women in our viewers, Sabrina, and Beautiful are speaking from at this point, yes, you all are speaking from a voice or a vantage point of experience, and you have some resources under your belt where now you know what to do with your resources. So I think that goes a long way in our discussion as far as the context of where men and women are in this discussion. But I think very well that what Bold is saying is that a lot of women start out asking these questions like he just said, and are thrown off by society, media, as far as what's important, and that sets everything off on the wrong trajectory for a decade or so until everyone becomes solidified in what they are. And sometimes we start out in some capacity, if we are raised from a lacking household, the city job, and nothing wrong with the city job, but the city job might be what you start out with, and you're getting overlooked.
Yeah, I was about to say that because remember when we were in high school, we had a lot of counterparts who were dating guys in college and guys over 30. When we were in college, we had a lot of our classmates who were freshmen and sophomores in college who were dating guys in their 30s and 40s.
And why is that?
They were doing that because it was a financial gain. It was the finances that what they wanted from the man. That's why I'm asking this question. And Suzette is not being genuine. She's being disingenuous right now.
I am being totally.
You ain't gotta be that direct.
I am being totally
he ain't cracked a smile on it yet. He's not being
I totally agree with what Brother Black was saying. It depends on where you are in life as in terms of what you will accept. Now, I will say that as you were saying, there are people who look for financial gain. They look for stability. They're looking for stability. Yeah, that does exist. But I think
Whoa,
now,
whoa, 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 whoa! You can't talk past that point. That's the point we're making. That is the exact point we're making.
I'm
That
saying
is the
that
exact
exists.
point we're making.
But
Okay, it exists.
But just like my
You
girl
don't think
Sabrina is
that's
telling you,
stability in a 40 grand a year?
we're living in a society now where women make their own money.
So that goes back to my.
Women can
that
bring
goes-
just as much to the table as a man can nowadays.
So that's why I asked the question. Y'all know I ask questions for a reason.
Yeah, and I give you the honest to God truth.
What I'm saying is that the fact that now money is no longer an issue because now society has provided other opportunities and options for you financially. Then we have to go back to manhood because the manhood that we knew growing up was the man who was the breadwinner, was the man who was at the top of the totem pole in his home, was the man who had the last say. So what you're telling me is now that you're making as much double or triple of what I'm making, you said that in order for us moving forward to have men in our communities, you're still willing to accept the manhood that we were taught to be, or the men that we were taught to be, although you're making 2 or 3 times the money we're making.
Mhm.
Is that what
Okay,
you're
you know
telling me?
what? Okay, fine. Since all right, let me go ahead and since you say I'm being disingenuous. First of all,
I just asked
yes,
a question.
no,
Hey,
you did ask the question. I'm
sensitive
going
all of a sudden.
you did ask
I
you
just
did
asked.
ask the question. Yes, we're willing to accept that man, but he gotta watch how he talk to us.
Oh, there we go. See,
All right, but
Watch how you
you
talk
fell right into that, Suzette. Come
that's
on,
so.
now, you
So
fell
let me
right into it.
so let me
You
go.
fell right into it.
Let me go back to masculinity.
Oh man,
Virile, manly, have vigor. He's strong. He's rough. He's robust. What else we talked about? We talked about manhood. Manhood was he was sexually mature. He was brave. He was courageous. He was determined. He had fortitude. He had a heroism. He was bold. So you're saying if a man is supposed to harness all of this, all of that, and then tell himself, well, I got to be careful how I talk to her with all this masculinity and machismo and bravery and courage and determination. Are you saying that the lion has to then turn around and say, well, I'm a lion, but I got to be careful how I roar at her? I'm just asking because I want to make sense of it. I'm raising an 18-year-old man. I'm raising an 18-year-old boy, and I'm
Get ready to rumble!
well, I'm just asking a question, man. Listen, I'm not. They already called me the male chauvinist, and I'll be that. I'll be that. I'll be that proudly because I I'll rather be a lion with a pride than a cat somewhere running around. I'd rather be that. But it's just a question because you said we got to be careful how we talk to you, but then you want us to be this brave.
I don't see how being a alpha male and a lion has to equate to you being rude or aggressive or abrasive
At times that is required.
when at times. But
So you
when it's consistent, that's not at times. That's a part of your character. So
guys,
we're trying to define what the character of a strong male is. So
guys,
when you list that, that's something that a female should consistently expect. And
I'm just asking.
is if you're alpha male, a female should not consistently expect abrasiveness from her counterpart. That does not have to be that. It doesn't have.
guys, take a moment, smell your candles.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I just asked a question.
Therapy.
I just asked the question. I was just asking the question. I want us to define it because I think this is one of the major problems why men in society is becoming somewhat of almost a thing of the past.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. We definitely need to agree on a definitive definition of it. But I'm just saying, at times some men, not all, some men misconstrued that definition of what masculinity is. So if you have to tear down the integrity of your female counterpart,
No. See, now you putting words in my mouth.
no, I'm not. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just saying be clear on the definitions of what masculinity is. Because I'm just telling you that some men feel like, woman, you gonna do what I say. Come
Thank
on,
you,
wait a
Cedric.
minute. We not in
So,
the Flintstone stage anymore. We don't do that.
so that's what I'm saying. So at this particular point, that's why I asked you the question. Not you, but that's why I posed the question earlier because we keep talking about manhood and having males in our communities, but then when it's watered down, we're given the definition of what manhood, but we were actually taught something different from the men in our society. So that's why I'm asking this question, because when we walk in what we know as manhood, society is telling us and our women are telling us that's not manhood, which directly affects the fact that we can be men sexually to have children, but we can't be men as leaders in our communities and in our homes. So this is what I'm asking. We can be porn stars, and we could be the most masculine man in the bedroom, and we can throw you around and tell you what to do, and you this and that and the third. But when it comes to a different situation, then we have to say, okay, hold on. I can't be that aggressive. I can't. I got to watch what I say, because then I have to say, does the lioness watch what she says?
You got quiet. I need my crickets going.
Whatever. Yes, she does. She does.
She does. Is that reflective in our? Thank you, Cedric.
Shut up, Cedric.
Thank you. I'm just saying. I mean, but that doesn't reflect. But see what I'm saying, because that disconnect. That's why we've got so many of our listen. And when we were coming up, we had to go to the girl's house and knock on the door. We couldn't blow the horn when we were going to pick up a girl. We had to go to the door, knock on the door, introduce ourselves, meet the brothers, meet the family.
Yeah.
Now, well, excuse me. And then it moved to, at the club scene and all that kind of stuff, and Freak Nick and all that. And then we started seeing a different side of our sisters. And then it came to the point where it was Netflix and chill for a minute. Do you know now what the dating scene is? It's pulling up. Like, I'm going to pull up and check you out and see how you are sexually before we even Netflix and chill and go on a date. And so now it's turned so much, because a lot of our brothers and sisters are confused about manhood, womanhood, like our roles. And like now you're just saying, well, he got to watch how he talk to me. So now you're telling us, yeah, Plenty of Fish, TikTok, these dating sites where now, Facebook, if you scroll up Facebook, you'll see, dating sites and women over 40 in your area and all this kind of stuff. And like with all that happening, how are we going to have men in our society if we're not able to define what manhood is, and then allow those men to be taught by men so that they can continue the legacy of manhood? Because if not, then society is going to then try to redefine what manhood is. And obviously that hasn't worked. It's made it worse, because I've been talking to a lot of these 15 and 18 and 21-year-old boys. These boys saying, I ain't never getting married because I can get what I want from a woman. Mm-hmm. And so how do we reconstruct, this male-female relationship so we can move forward? So again, you said, we can be men. We can make $40,000, and you can make $200,000, and you still would take instruction from the man.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this: moving forward, are our sisters looking for traditional men, or are they looking for modern men?
I know you're gonna crucify me. So
no, I just want to know. I'm not going to be Kevin Samuelson. No. I'm not going to do that.
I know you're going to crucify me. But the honest answer to that is that a woman is looking for a combination of both. The woman is looking for that traditional strong man to lead the family, to protect the family, all of that. But she's also looking for the modern man who doesn't mind relaxing some of the gender roles and helping her get in there and wash the dishes, and helping her get in there and take care of the kids, and helping her get in there and wash clothes. So to be honest, that's what we're looking for. We kind of want the best of both worlds.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And so if women are looking for the best of both worlds, what if we're not taught to be a modern man and we were taught to be traditional men? Then we can't give you the best of both worlds, because we were told modern men weren't men. So how can we then give you give you what you want And at that particular point, can we ask?
You know, since,
Well,
since
okay,
you since you
let
called
me.
me out, since you called me out, I'm
I'm
calling you out. What are you? What are you? Are you a traditional man or are you a modern man?
I'm a traditional man. I believe in gender
So
roles.
you believe in the traditional gender roles.
Mhm. But
You
I
don't
also
do, you don't do dishes. You don't do laundry.
my grandfather was born in 1914. He got married in 1920s. No, he's born 1912. He got married late 20s, late 1920s, maybe early 30s. And my grandfather washed dishes. He cooked. He farmed. He worked. He pastored. He helped around the house. So
That's
I don't
not
know. I don't
traditional.
know. That is traditional.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
You know it's not.
It is traditional.
It's
It is.
traditional for your family, but by definition, it's not. Gender roles are very specific, and you know that.
But see now again you're doing what society is telling us. You're telling me what I'm just saying. Like traditional, there are some men. There are some men that like he didn't do laundry. I never seen my granddaddy fold up nothing. He did help wash dishes because my granddaddy cooked a lot. But I didn't see him. I never seen him clean a bathroom. I never seen him mop a floor. So he did help out.
Yeah, I don't know if that even defines modern versus
Right.
traditional.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
There's better delineation between the two than helping out.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you are two gentlemen. Y'all are struggling defining what is traditional and modern.
I'm not struggling. I'm not
We
Yeah,
have
struggling.
a struggle to define traditional now.
Now we have a struggle to define traditional. I think the
Okay,
struggle.
well,
I
then
think the
what is
struggle.
the
I
what,
think the
what is
struggle.
your
I think the
definition of
struggle.
modern?
I think the struggle is the very fact that when it comes to modern,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more of a woman's definition.
Well, help me out, bro.
Okay.
HBO this situation.
All right. So here we go. Men traditionally take care of the maintenance of the stability of the family, whether it be farming, whether it be building, whether it be things outside of the home. Okay. Yeah. Killing spiders, killing rats, stuff like that, feeding the dog, feeding the chickens, mowing the grass, farming the fields, as far as plowing and stuff. Now there are women that would help, but traditionally, that's kind of what that was. We do the hard labor, and you do washing the dishes, the laundry. The girl. What they would consider the girl stuff, which is really synonymous with what home ec was. Home ec was not inserted in the school for boys. It was for the girls to be able to establish the economy inside of the home.
That's what I just said, Bo.
You finished? So what I'm saying is that traditional doesn't mean that I don't touch nothing inside of the house. That's not traditional. Traditional means you accept the majority of the responsibilities according to your gender. Wouldn't it be like really heartless for a man to just drop his clothes all over the house and expect for you to pick them up? Wouldn't that be disrespectful? You're not answering.
No, she's not answering that.
Oh, it's safe for me to speak now.
I,
Come
I,
on,
I didn't.
be consistent. Be consistent.
Oh man.
I'm just asking.
What's the okay? All right. I
Okay,
think
so let me give you let me give you an example of a modern
What
man.
is modern? What is
Modern man, a modern man, a
Yeah.
modern man. Okay, let me finish up with the tradition. Traditional also makes sure that he was the provider. He didn't want his woman to work. He didn't want his woman to be out in the community. He wanted her to be home. He wanted to take care of all of that. Okay. The modern man will accept the 50-50 relationship, which means the traditional man said, well, basically what I say goes. Now that didn't mean that she didn't have any input. Didn't mean that she didn't help in the process. It meant that he ultimately had the final decision. Modern men will bring everything to the table and say, baby, what you think? And we're gonna come to a consensus. We're gonna split everything down the middle, 50-50. The modern man will also split all the responsibilities. The modern man doesn't take the leadership role. He takes the cooperative, the co-partner role. That's the major difference. And seemingly that seems to be what's wanted in today's time, where that's why I asked the question. Because you said you could make 2 to 3 times what he makes, but still allow him to be a traditional man, but then you'll let him have the decision making until when? So that's the question we're asking. And so there's a big difference. I'm a traditional man. There are modern men out there, but more than likely, a lot of our sisters are looking for modern men. And if that be the case, y'all let us know that. Let us know that you're looking for modern men. But you can't have a hybrid man. I mean, everything has outliers. I've said that 1,000 times. But the majority of the bell curve are men that are looking for traditional relationships. That's why you have all of these arguments about women with social media and all this kind of stuff, and women wearing clothes and being boisterous in public and things like that. That's why it's such a pushback in our community, because we don't have our definitions in concrete.
That part.
So that's why I asked the question. Are many of our women looking for hybrid men moving forward so we can maintain men in our community? Or are women looking for traditional men? Because a man, for him to kind of straddle the fence, it's going to be hard for him to do both.
First of all, once men amongst themselves are very clear on the definitions of what is traditional and modern, once y'all have established that, it will be easier for women to determine what it is that they're looking for and need.
So are you telling me that women don't know what traditional men is?
You just had to define it.
So that's the first time you ever heard
based
that?
on the definition that you just presented tonight, then it would be safe to say that women would want a traditional man. But the problem is that men's definition of a traditional man is misconstrued a lot of times. But if you're telling me that a traditional man still can be helpful with the children, still can help around the house, still can, be a contributing part of the household, then yes, absolutely, women want a traditional man.
So what you just told me inductively says that you believe, prior to this conversation, that a traditional man was a man that was not interactive with his children, a man that never picked up behind himself and never washed a dish,
Mm-hmm.
a man that never did anything in the house. If he saw it nasty, he left it nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you saw? Is that what you saw your grandparents do?
That's not what I saw my grandparents do.
Is that what you think? Is that what you think society was prior to your grandparents?
A lot of the times, that's what gender roles were. Everything that encompassed inside of the house, tending to the children, tending to housework, was considered a female's position or a female's role. Everything outside of that, working in the field, working in the yard, as OG said, doing tune-ups and auto work, that was considered a male's role. So, based on those definitions, those are ingrained into some people's mind of what traditional roles are based on just the sex of a male and a female. But if you're telling me that a traditional role encompasses a man sharing the load with the female, then absolutely a woman would want a traditional man.
So moving forward, we should be looking for. So so in that case, moving forward, and you're saying that most of our sisters are looking for cooperative men. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So should we get, so that means that we should be looking for cooperative women as well, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so at that particular point, sounds like as we progress, sounds like we should begin to discard all biblical principles. Seems like we should discard or redefine for ourselves what male-female relationships look like. In order for us to close this intergenerational gap, we should be more 50-50 men instead of traditional men, correct?
What do you mean by that, Bo? 50-50.
Cooperation.
You just define what a traditional male does.
No, that's not. Well, traditional man isn't a 50-50 man. He's a modern man. So that's what I'm saying.
I said help. I didn't say split. Notice those two words? I said a gentleman that will help a female with some of her gender duties, not split the load. Because when you say split, that encompasses under your definition of what a modern man does. They split. But
So
a woman will be a woman. I feel like women don't want to relinquish what their responsibilities are. They just want to know that their partner is there to help assist them if needed. That comes under part of the protection role.
okay, so I just got a message, and the message says, so when you say share the load, so does that mean that the woman is going to share the man's load? Share with cutting the grass, share with taking out the trash, share with stopping the burglar, share with opening the
Amen.
door.
You asking the wrong one because I do all that. But yeah.
I'm talking about no, not you, because we can't answer anecdotally, because if we do that, then we're pigeonholing the conversation.
Well, take a poll. We have women on here. Ask women that.
Okay, so ladies, are you saying that when she says share the load, we're just trying to get some information. We're not trying to start, this back and forth. We're really trying to get some information. Ladies, when she says share the load, does that mean sharing with cutting grass, share with taking out trash, share with getting up in the middle of the night and you taking turns when you hear noises downstairs, sharing with opening of the doors, or any of the other things that make it one-sided for men? Are we going to share everything, or are we going to selectively share? This is the question that was asked through the message. I just want to know.
Sharing everything would mean 50-50, which would define it as the modern. But we're talking about traditional.
But
so
you're asking,
the man is not going to want to share. I mean, you already said he wants to relinquish a majority of the control, so he's not going to share all the load.
Well, I mean, I think it's a valid question, and I don't know. Okay, Tan said that's above her pay grade, so that's a response right there. That's someone who's not willing to share the load. That's the only response we've gotten so far. Are there any other sisters that could help us with this? Because we got to remember, there's other people that are going to be watching this. My wife will do all of that except Killer Spider. She's going to run it.
That's right.
Okay, so that's one and one. That's 1 and 1. That's 50-50. So we can't celebrate yet.
Oh, don't do that.
You got real. Yeah, see that? Tell them.
Don't do that.
It's only 1 and 1.
Hey, I'm just going by the platform that you presented. By your definition, a modern.
Let me get a definition on here, because you keep trying to make it my definition. So I'm gonna.
That's the one you gave.
I'm gonna, because you act like you don't know what a traditional man is. What does it mean to be a traditional man? You trying to play this word game. What does it mean to be a traditional man? The word traditional man can imply that a man who is really entrenched and grounded in aged, long beliefs and practices. He adheres strictly to cultural principles of what a man should and should not do. He believes the sole provider. He believes in being the sole provider of major income for his family that cannot be compromised. A traditional man can also be described as a firm fatherly figure with an independent character, believing that he is the king of his palace or family. So you're asking this traditional man to then take away 20% of himself to do what? Because you said you wanted him to help out. So that means that he's going to have to step off of that traditional platform and become what? If he's not traditional, then he must be modern.
Bold. You are the one that said that a traditional man, like your grandfather, helped out
Thank
around.
you, Thomas. He'll become a wishy-washy man. That's what he's going to become if you ask him to step off of that traditional. We're just asking questions. I just want to know. Because, I mean, we had, I don't know. Brothers, just be who you are, and sisters, be who you are, and
My
let the
point
chips
is
fall where they
my
may. I
point
don't know.
is
We
that
can't.
you guys
We can't get
can't even
nowhere.
define what traditional and
I
modern is.
did.
How is a
I
woman
defined it.
select out of
Okay.
that pool?
I,
What? A pool of
Dwayne,
competition.
Brother Black, did I not define? Did I poorly define traditional man?
I thought you just read something that was a definition. That's just what I heard.
No, sir. Not based on what you. Why would you bring up what your grandfather did? Oh,
My grandfather was a traditional man. My grandfather was the breadwinner of the home. My grandmother, the only job she had outside of the home was helping some
Did she,
other folk clean their house.
let's do another example of bold. Did she challenge and question and demean
No,
your grandfather?
no.
Okay, that's what we're really getting at. I mean, let's not challenge and get down to the nuts and bolts. That was he a loving spirit that he didn't help out? I mean, let's not go into that battle of the gray
That's
area.
what I'm saying. That's
There
exactly
are there are clear black and white scenarios to where
okay. Let's do it.
a
Let's do it.
traditional man is going to stand his ground, go by traditional values, that there are distinctive roles. In general, there are distinctive roles, but that does not mean that I'm not going to pick up my clothes off the floor and put them in the washing machine. All right. So I think we need to stick to both sides being clear.
Yes.
And so the question that Bo posed is that is the traditional role versus the modern role or relationship,
Mm-hmm.
is that something that women are willing to compete with?
Yes. Women
moving.
want traditional men.
So you want a man to be the king of his palace,
Yes.
but you want him to also capitulate a little bit from time to time.
No, the king. As I stated earlier, just because he's the king of the castle does not mean he has to be abrasive verbally to his counterpart, his queen. Sometimes we think that by me being masculine, I can talk to you any kind of way I want to, and that is just not
So
right.
let me also hold on,
Masculinity
Bo,
is not disrespect.
let me do this, Bo, because I think this is probably where one of us, either of us, actually have the confusion with where this comes
Thank
from. All right. The first thing out the gate, in many occasions, where Beautiful is describing, is that there's an abrasive nature that women are not willing to accept. All right. To me, that's a fragment of the full context, because we got to explore why is that man being abrasive, and I would challenge that with what Bold's concept is also illustrating as well, is that you can't talk to a man any kind of way and then not expect that lion to be abrasive. I think
I
we
agree.
need to stop jumping into the scenario like, oh, the man can't be abrasive. Well, I'm not. No one will want to be abrasive unless triggered to be abrasive. So are we really telling the whole truth here, or are we just saying men are abrasive, masculinity is abrasive, when that's not really the full context? I'm sure Granddad Hampton over there would definitely not be the out the gate abrasive person.
Mm-hmm.
But if pushed as a man,
Mm-hmm.
there's a response that is necessary.
Okay.
And I think that's what Bold has already said, is that the lion is pretty much going to sit like in his picture right there for the most part of the day. But when pushed to a certain degree, when actually full context, he shouldn't even have to deal with that in his household. Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
The lion probably should be only a lion of roaring capacity when the household is in trouble and he needs to be the protector of his household. So I think what we got to really reckon with is why are we bringing attitudes and yakety yak, as Thomas already said, into our households as if you're an external person.
Right.
So then I have to ask the question: which do you prefer? Because if you prefer a traditional man, you prefer a lion who must roar at some point. He's got to roar. He's got to establish his kingship at some point. But it sounds like you're saying when it's time for him to establish that he's a lion, that he's the leader, you're saying that he got to be careful how he be a lion around me. Is that what I heard?
That's a lot of it. I think that's the silence that you hear.
No, I just want the lion to be aware, and most lionists want the lion to be aware of who the real enemy is.
Then you are hooked in a line with the wrong person. Let's divulge into
Real, yeah,
that.
perhaps.
Right, because
Perhaps,
at that point, what it sounds like you're saying is, are you speaking from your perspective or most women? Before I answer this,
Most women want to
Okay.
be talked to with respect. They don't care if he
But
is
then,
a lion.
hold on.
Hold on.
By saying that most women want to be taught with respect, that also alludes to the counter that precedes that most women are not being taught to out of respect. And I don't think you've really taken that survey and study to say that. But I agree with you. Yes, women shouldn't want to be taught to out of disrespect. That's great. But are women really experiencing that out of the, again, I'm not talking about past experiences, not talking about the younger 20-year ago, but are most women in the seats that you all sit in now as mature, decision-making women, are you all experiencing that out of the men now? Or are you just speaking on behalf of people that are experiencing that 20 years in their immaturity level?
Well, just like Brother Bo alluded to, now we're living in a day and age in society of pull up. You know what I'm saying? You were reminiscing on the fact that people would come up to the door and introduce themselves to the family and come to, the situation or a date or encounter like a gentleman. We have also mentioned in shows previous that chivalry is limping along. So yeah, I think a lot of women are
That's out
experiencing.
of context, though, right there.
Yeah, that's
Because the reason
not.
I've said that before, that chivalry, is limping, and is, the cliche is chivalry is dead, but that's because it's not being honored.
Okay.
So we've seen the video clips of somebody opening the door and the woman walks in, doesn't say anything, and like, forget it. You come back and open the door for yourself. Then that's why chivalry is dead.
Okay, so I
Well,
got
that might be the MO of why it's dead. It still doesn't negate the fact that it's dead. So yes, to go back to your previous question, yeah, a lot of women are experiencing disrespect from men, from
But you just tied back up the box that I just unraveled for everyone. Is that you're saying that you acknowledge that chivalry is dead, but you're not acknowledging that why it's dead.
yes,
And it's not to the
it's
fact, just
it's
like
a vicious cycle.
Brother Cedric is saying that he's teaching his young men, his young males, to shake hands, look in the eye, perhaps open doors and everything. I'm teaching my young man, open your mother's side of the door, open your sister's side of the door. Do not sit at the table before they sit down. These type of things, open doors, etc. So chivalry is not dead in that perspective out of the gate. But if he goes on through life and experiences women that aren't taught equally the same, which is what I'm saying, we got to reckon with both sides.
Yeah.
Not just talk about what men are not doing, but are we raising women as well to be accepting of chivalry and also being accepting of, if you want a traditional type man, are you a traditional woman?
Right.
Okay, so I think I got two things. It sounds like It's the desire of our sisters to want to dictate how we lion. And so if that be the case, and I'm just assuming, I want to share this, and I want to ask you: should we? I'm being petty, but this is really serious. Should we roar when we see this? Should we roar?
That's
when
that's
we
like a bunch of hyenas instead of lionesses.
Right.
So should we? So so let me go back to my question. Let me
Right.
go back to my question. Moving forward, sh- should we be still raising our men to be the men we were raised to be? And I'm not saying we're all right and we're the men, we're these model men. I'm not saying all that. So please don't even go there. I'm not even saying that. What I'm saying is, moving forward, should we roar at situations like that, or are you saying I should be careful how I roar at that?
No, you definitely should roar at situations like that. And then also, you definitely should continue to raise your men,
Hmm.
your young men, to be men. You know,
What kind of man?
like
Because
like
what
Brother
kind of
Black
man?
just said,
What
like
kind of
Brother
man?
Black just said, that wasn't a pack of lioness, that was a pack of hyenas. Unfortunately, in the circle of life, there's still going to be those two species. So
Right.
you're not raising your son to cater to the hyenas. You're raising your sons to cater to the lioness, his equal. You know what I'm saying? When you invest into your own child, to your own cubs, to your own tribe, you're gonna instill in them what to look for. You're not teaching them to go out and look for a hyena. You're teaching them to go out and look for someone that's going to complement what you already bring into the table. And
Right.
the same thing for young ladies. Young ladies, you're not, as you mentioned before, we're not teaching our young ladies to go out and, hey, go out and get the best scrub you can get. Come on. You're telling them to go out and get somebody that complements you, that's going to help you build in this life, not take you down and destroy you. So yes, we absolutely cannot abandon the fact that we should be yet raising our young men and young women to be just that, the best version of themselves that they could possibly be.
Hmm.
There's always going to be social statuses. There's always going to be a bottom rim to it all. But what is our goal as a people? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
And so,
we have to raise the bar. Only way we raise the bar is we individually raise it within ourselves, moving upward. Otherwise, we're gonna implode. You know what I'm saying?
so,
We're gonna
so,
implode. If we
so
if we
again,
stop teaching them, if we say, just forget about it. There's nothing but hyenas out there. You ain't even gotta worry about how you carry yourself. We're gonna implode, fold in on ourselves. So we're gonna have to constantly raise the bar. If we're gonna have some kind of uh, hope to have a higher social status or higher more fiber, we gotta constantly raise the bar. I mean,
so
there's no
that,
question about that.
so by you saying that, and I agree, I totally agree. Does that apply to men also?
It applies to men and women. It
Okay.
has to apply to men and women, because otherwise you're gonna have qualified men out there with no suitable partners or no suitable selection pool, and vice versa. You're gonna have qualified women out there with no qualified men to marry or to partner with. So we're just gonna have to forget about all the hyenas out there and focus on the higher echelon, and hopefully that is gonna to raise the bar all around.
Well, definitely. Okay. And I totally agree with that. And what I want, and I really want to, if it's okay, I want to close out, this conversation with this particular quote. Um,
Cedric,
right. You see that
oh my
Executive
God,
Tripping.
our viewers been off the chain
He's
tonight.
tripping
Oh
right. He's,
my God.
and so, and you said we have to raise our standards, and definitely do that. And I get it. I'm on her side too. We have to be able to, make that delineation between who's a hyena and who's a this, that, and the third. And so ultimately, again, in honor of the Godfather, we need to find out who's average and who's above a 7 and be able to identify them. And I'm not just talking in looks, I'm just talking about in quality of who they are. Being able to really look at the situation and then say, I don't want her, I don't want him, etc., and not be beat up, and drugged through the mud when you have hyenas around you and you don't want to be with them. And so basically, moving forward, we're going to have to make better decisions, choose better partners, and be able to separate ourselves from the pack. Really. And so we're going to keep men in our society moving forward. Men are going to have to make sure that we take our mistakes and, like Brother Cedric says, and move on.
Move on.
Make better decisions. Make peace with your past. Make peace with the mistakes you've made, and move forward. That means changing your behavior, changing the trajectory of your focus, and all that other stuff. Because hyenas are fun until you go to the clinic.
Oh my God.
And so yeah, we definitely got to push it, but there's a lot, like Brother OG said, this is a longer conversation that's going to have to be had.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there are some people in our local area, part of the jungle, we're going to have to just cut ties with and disassociate ourselves with. And neither side can be upset because you're not chosen.
I admit.
Expand your horizon.
I want to end my last comment saying, back to our moniker tonight, the importance of Black men in our society. We absolutely need our Black men in the society. And PSA to our Black women, let's start supporting our Black men. Stop tearing them down verbally. And if we can't, I'm going back to my grandmother. If you don't have nothing good to say, just don't say nothing at all. Basically, that's what needs to happen.
All right, Brother Black, you got anything before we close out, my brother?
No, I think the pillars I stood on tonight were just basically, knowing that Black men are important in today's society. I think we need to make sure that we're very cognizant of what media is trying to do. We need to be very cognizant with what our education system is trying to do, in light of watering down what manhood is, what a male and a female is. There is no other. There is no binary. We need to not even drink that Kool-Aid. But we also need to develop groups of males, being that some of us are being selected for higher positions. We need to start uplifting others, recommending others as well, and not being in any form or fashion competitive at all, but more so working together. If you don't have a voice in the fight, or you feel like you're being muzzled because you're perhaps in a system that doesn't allow you or shuns you being very vocal, then develop outside groups, outside of the entity that you're under. I think, again, before I said is that we don't have that here. We're not developing that. We need to develop that culture that needs to grow in order for us to make any impact and change behind the scenes. And that's really where it stands, because as Thomas already said, the education system wasn't built for us to succeed or even thrive. So we need to go beyond that. But we need real men to step up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, man. I thank y'all for the conversation. Again, we wanted to be adults about it. We didn't want to stick in the mud and keep it a low vibrational conversation. We really wanted to expand the conversation. I think we gave it a good shot. Again, there's more to discuss. There's so much we didn't even uncover. But I appreciate, the conversation that we have. Thank you all for the interaction, in the comments. You all made this show another great one. I appreciate I appreciate our nimbleness to be able to jump from one end of the spectrum to the next, and definitely still have a great conversation. Thank you all so much for every person that commented, every person that shared, every person that liked, and even anybody that subscribed. We really appreciate your support. Thank you for rocking with us for another great Black in the Bold show. And again, as I always say, I'm gonna get ready to pack up my greasy lunch bag, say my little Easter speech, and get up out of here. Tonight, of course, we were talking about the importance of black men in society. So I just want to leave you with this particular quote. It says, "A successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that were thrown at him." I think it's very important we really understand Proverbs 27:17 tells us that iron sharpens iron and one man sharpens the face of his neighbor. I think we need to understand that in order for us to have men in our society, we need men to tell us what a man is. We need real men to step up and embrace us, to give us the wisdom that we need, to question us when we're making certain decisions, to encourage us in times when we feel discouraged and beaten down, to be able to coach us when we don't quite understand something, but we need somebody to lift us as we climb. We definitely need someone at the end of the day to challenge us, to test us, to know that at the end of the day, that if you want to be a man, show me what men do.
Right.
I love all my brothers tonight. I want you to find your wolf pack. Find your group of men who will challenge you, who will question your decision making, who will encourage you, but who would also coach you. We love you here at Black and the Bold and the Beautiful. We want to make sure that you get corrected to your next tribe. Because remember, you are the company you keep. We love y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Rest in peace to the Godfather, KS. Till next time, peace, love, and light. We out.